faint beam of the masked headlamps demanding she hunch over the steering wheel, squinting into the oncoming darkness. But in bad weather, it was an ordeal. Add to that the fact that she was shivering with cold, and the car noisy with the sounds of the wind in wild tumult, and the drive was bloody miserable. Ma mère était anglaise. Elle est morte avant la guerre. She was getting better, she could tell, but French certainly didn't come naturally to her. Her schoolgirl lessons were long forgotten, apart from a motley collection of words that hung in her memory, like the bracket fungus that encircled the beech trees in Ball's Wood. But repeating the same words over and over, all of it an imagined cover story culled from the truth, pulled her thoughts in a direction they preferred not to go. My mother was English. She died before the war. She wasn't even certain she'd ever need any of it. All the more reason to take a break from her self-imposed practicing. It had been more than an hour since she'd left the Firs, the Baker Street facility in Whitchurch, Buckinghamshire, dedicated to the development of explosives. The drive over had been comparatively pleasant. The weak autumn sun had given the sky a pearly glow, and the Austin had seemed much cosier with 2 additional occupants, particularly given their chatty dispositions. The commanding officer of Station 17, Major Boom, had been due for a transfer. He'd fractured his leg back in July, the injury a result of a parachute jump, standard for all agents enrolled in the special training school, and one recommended for all officers. Ever since, he'd struggled a bit with the day-to-day operations at Brickendonbury Manor. At the Firs, he could hole up in his office and get back to the work of designing clever, and quite devastating, devices to sabotage the Nazi war machine. Liz was going with him. Her fellow Fanny was eager to be making a fresh start, free of the stigma of a certain indiscretion. Liz was clever, efficient, and a hard worker, and while Olive was sad to see her go, Jamie, she was certain, would be much relieved. The situation was rather confounded. By the time Olive had arrived at the manor the previous spring, she'd discovered that Captain Jameson Aldridge was the object not only of her own contrived romantic cover story, but of Liz's very real aspirations as well. When Jamie had approached Olive on behalf of Baker Street to supply birds for ongoing missions into occupied Europe, he'd made it clear that her role as a pigeoneer would be contingent on secrecy. Not even her family could know what she was doing, or who he really was. Off the cuff, a burgeoning romantic entanglement between the pair had seemed a perfect solution. It would justify Jamie's presence at Blackcap Lodge, and in the Dovecote, and quell village gossip. Unfortunately, things weren't quite as cut and dried as Olive had imagined. Whereas Liz had been infatuated with the man's Irish good looks, broad shoulders, and air of competence, Olive had been subjected to the full gamut of his more frustrating qualities, a fact that had, bafflingly, led to a twinge of jealousy in the other Fanny. Suffice it to say that it was best for everyone that Liz was going. They'd said their goodbyes, and Olive, never one to miss an opportunity to dispatch her birds on a training mission, had released a pair of them into the sky on the lawn of the Firs. With a vigorous flapping, they'd launched themselves straight upwards into the sky and banked in widening circles, their bodies dark against the waning light. Once they'd got their bearings, they'd flown with single-minded intention, eager to reach home before dark. Olive, in turn, had climbed into the car to trundle the Austin back over the ever-darkening lanes. At first, she'd been content to be out alone in the gloaming,